around. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to begin this service. Please put your cell phones to silent mode so they don't go off during the service. The funeral is being conducted by Hazan Stephen Storr.
There are several traditions that we have to fulfill at a moment like this, as sad as it is, but they're necessary. Ultimately, this was not a time that you were expected to have to mourn for your mother. And for that, all of us and so many more people are extending our condolences and our hugs and our embrace of support to you. Sometimes you don't feel like you ever want to stand up. You just want to sit down, and you're so tired. It takes a lot out of you, out of your soul. And this is a person who gave you life and gave you love. And, it's difficult. I know the family has suffered other recent losses as well. This compounded sadness is unfair, and it can take the wind out of a person. And I was going to ask you to stand for a brief minute, because you're wearing a ribbon, and we need to cut this ribbon. Kriya, the word kriya means to tear, and sometimes people would take their suit, their shirt, their tie, and just rip at it to show their anguish. It hurts so bad inside, I have to do something physically. This is just a little bit more economical, because you wear nice suits and nice shirts, right? But this is the same gesture. Something's been torn, something's incomplete, and that's what you're feeling inside, and this allows people to identify you and give you the embrace that you need. Okay, we're going to say a bracha. We're going to say a blessing to God for the fact that she was your mother, that she raised you and loved you, and you knew from her, and that she got to see grandchildren and have a daughter. So we're going to thank God by saying the bracha. So if you would, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu Melech HaOlam Dayan HaEmet. It means we praise you, God. The word Dayan HaEmet, you are the judge, creator of the world. Adonai Natan, Adonai Lakach. God takes life, but God gives life. And God gives you the strength to persevere sad loss. And God gives you the blessing of memory to remember every sweetness of your dear mother's life. You see? Thank you. In this pamphlet that has been provided for you, there's a psalm. And if you can read along with me, that'd be nice to hear your voice of the community that wants to honor Enoch. It's on the first page. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures, and he leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He guideth me in straight paths for his name's sake. And yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest a table before me in the presence of my enemies. Thou hast anointed my head with oil, my cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Mizmor David, Adonai, Roi L'Avsar, B'noteh Sheyad B'Tzeini, Al Mei Menuchot Yinhaleni, Nafshi Yishovev Yancheni, B'malei Tzedek L'man Shemo, Gam ki elech b'getz al mavet lo yirara ki ata imadi. Shivtecha u'mishantecha hema yenachamoni. Taroch lefanai shulchan neged so'ederai. Yishanta b'shem roshi kosi levaya. Atov chesed yerdefuni kol yemei chayai, v'shamti b'beit Adonai leorech yamim. The psalm that I sang in Hebrew was what you read in English. The Lord is my shepherd. One sentence in particular stands out to me, and that is, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil. A moment like today is like walking through a valley, walking through a deep depression. And there's a depression emotionally, and there's a depression physically. As I said, you feel like you're just down. You don't feel like you'll be lifted up. But the psalmist says, I will walk through that valley. I will find a way through. The question is how? How do we get through the sadness and the loss? Well, part of the way is memory that I mentioned. Part of the way is by holding on to each other and knowing that you still have love and life and community. And I'm confident that you will get through, sadly, today and the next number of days to come. Esai na'elari me'ayin yafo Ezri me'im Adonai Yoseh shamayim va'aret Al yitin lamod raglecha Al yanum shomrecha Hine lo yanum v'lo yishan shomer Yisrael Adonai shomrecha Adonai tzilcha al yad yaminecha Yom HaShemesh yakecha v'yarech l'layla Adonai yishmorcha u'ra'icha l'shmor et nafshecha Adonai yishmorcha tzeitecha u'voecha me'ata v'yad olam. I turn my eyes to the heavens. From where shall my help come? I must turn to God, who is the maker of heaven and earth. For God does not let us be harmed by day nor by night. God guards us, our souls, from the time we're born until the time we pass on. And for eternity, it is God that shall watch over us. The holiday of Pesach is just a couple of weeks away. The holiday of Pesach is strewn with questions. Why do we dip? Why do we eat matzah? Why do we eat maror? Why were the Jews enslaved? Why is tonight different from all other nights? Athena's passing so suddenly, there are also so many questions that must be in your mind. Why did this happen so unexpectedly? How will your family move forward without her present, her good neshama, her sweet soul, and her kindness? Who is going to make the borscht and all of the Russian and other Ukrainian dishes? Ina was described by you, Alex and Lana, as someone who would give you the shirt off her back, someone who didn't have the capacity to do harm to anybody or speak an untruth. And all of this, which you, Alex, described as having been bequeathed to her by virtue of her own dear mother, Uzia's character. And you also warmly smiled as you defined your dear Lana as having come from a similar type of mold. Other people had glowing accolades to offer about Ina as I perused her LinkedIn page. A couple of her colleagues posted, Ina is extremely integral to our inventory control team. Ina is a tremendous asset to the company. She is consistent, hardworking, accurate, and devoted to her craft. Her integrity and honesty are impeccable, as well as always being a positive and upbeat person. Lovely accolades. And I believe there's a co-worker here today that would like to offer a few additional words, if I'm not mistaken. Please.
Dear cherished friends and family, today is a day heavy with sorrow as we bid farewell to someone incredibly dear to us, my beloved friend, Goldman. Though she may no longer be with us physically, her presence will forever reside within our hearts. Ina was more than just a co-worker, she was my closest, dearest friend. My rock, my guiding light. We shared an unbreakable bond, forged over nearly a decade of working side by side as reliable home care providers. Even before that, during her time as a therapy coordinator at PT of Illinois, I could sense her uniqueness, her infectious spirit that illuminated any room she entered. Each morning, Ina's radiant smile and cheerful "Good morning, Anita" would chase away any lingering shadows, filling my day with warmth and joy. Her selflessness knew no bounds. She always placed the needs of others above her own. Ina possessed a remarkable gift for making everyone feel valued and cherished. Whether it was offering up a listening ear, providing words of wisdom, or simply sharing a comforting embrace, she was always there when I needed her most. In my darkest moments, it was Ina's unwavering support, her boundless care and guidance that pulled me through. I owe so much of who I am today to her loving influence, and I will be forever grateful. extended far beyond our workplace. She treasured her co-workers as dear friends. Together we shared countless moments of laughter and joy, building cherished memories that I will hold close to my heart forever. Her professionalism and expertise as reliable home care providers were unparalleled, and her therapist colleagues held her in the highest regard, praising her dedication and compassion. But above all, Ina's greatest joy was found in her family. She spoke of her son Alex, daughter-in-law Lana, and her beloved grandchildren, as she called Nanic, Kazaki, and Joey, with an overwhelming pride and love that knew no bounds. Their achievements were her victories, and she celebrated each with boundless enthusiasm and joy. Ina wasn't just intelligent, she was the signal of brilliance. Her stories weaving tales of inspiration and wisdom that captivated all who listened. Ina shared her stories and taught important lessons with so much love and warmth, making us all feel wrapped up in her kindness. Today, as we say our goodbyes, let us take comfort in the knowledge that Ina's spirit will continue to shine brightly in our lives, guiding us with her legacy of love, kindness. Though she may be gone from our sight, her memory will forever live in our hearts. Rest in peace, my dear friend. Your absence leaves an irreplaceable void, but your memory will forever be a source of comfort and strength until we meet again.
Ina had come over to the United States in August of 1980, and without familiarity of the English language, she would begin to work just 1 month later for Marx Brothers Jewelers, and Whitehall Jewelry, and would spend some 43 years collectively working for them. And then she ended up working for another company as well, and she did so until March 6th, just 1 day prior to her medical scare, which caused her to be taken to the hospital, from which she sadly would not return home and would succumb to her unforeseen condition. She had been born in Kiev to her parents Daniel and Uzia Stern, and was blessed with a sister Mila. In the era and geographic area in which they were living, it is no surprise that her father had, when he was only 19 years old, found himself as a prisoner of war. He would learn that being Jewish was not an asset in any way, and thus changed his last name of Stern to Panfilov, which in Greek or Latin means everyone's favorite, or someone who loves everyone and everything. It is no coincidence that he would marry Uzia, who Alex described as the embodiment of someone who lived in that way, a person who emanated goodness. One such example being that when she emigrated to the US, to Chicago, she lived in a neighborhood known for not being quite quiet or restful, and in fact it was peppered with gangs, and from the lobby of her own apartment building there were drug dealers. But yet she, with her inherent character and goodness, would win those people over. Win them over so much that they would help grab her groceries from her, walk up to the third floor apartment for her, and even put the groceries away for her. This group of individuals who seemed not to have respect for other people had respect for her. Ina was 29 when she would come to the United States and would retain much of her Eastern European traits and her deep, proud Jewish identity, but she would also transfer or transmute into being an American career woman. She was blessed with her husband, Joseph, and they would marry on March 31st, 1972. Each of them were bright, intellectual individuals who were both voracious readers of literature, reading the best of the classics, and had a penchant for Alexandre Dumas, the celebrated author of The Three Musketeers and the Count of Monte Cristo. How fortunate they were to have you, Alex, as a son. You would bless them by marrying Lana. There was no typical Jewish mother, granddaughter, in-law jokes to be shared as it pertained to your relationship. For to Uzia, you, Lana, were her golden girl. Lana, you shared that when you and Alex married, you were a teenager still, a young 18-year-old, and thus Ina played a significant influence on your life, including teaching you how to make some of those delicious foods, like chicken noodle soup and that Napoleon dessert. And Alex, you also defined the two of them as having evolved into very good shopping buddies as well. Alex, you were no doubt her young prince. You recalled to me how your mother did not like to drive and thus would ask you to do the driving most of the time. The issue at first was that you didn't have a driver's license, but she trusted you enough to let you drive. There's another episode you shared that being, when you were taken by her to Las Vegas, you stayed at Circus Hotel and did a little gambling and some entertainment. Again, there was a slight issue. You were only 18. But your mother suggested that the 2 months prior to going to Vegas, you should stop shaving, and by that time you would have a beard. And you did, which got you into the casinos. The countless hours in your home create myriad lifetime memories, such as your Friday night custom of ordering pizza, sitting on the floor and watching movies together. You told me that your mother enjoyed various genres of movies, but most often action movies, war movies, a good Chuck Norris style movie. She was not going to overprotect you, rather expose you to the realities and even the potential dangers in the world so that you could be prepared for life. In her later years, you said she would sit at home and enjoy her Russian television stations as well. Before I share some thoughts about her pleasure of being a babushka to Daniel, Zachary, and Joseph, I'd like you, Alex, to share your thoughts this time.
This was a lot harder than I thought it would be. A few months ago, we were here because of another untimely loss, my father-in-law, Yaakov. Another great individual, blessed be his memory, and also taken far too soon from us. It's hard because I thought about this, and I thought that if I was to stand here and talk about my mother, we'd probably be here well past her birthday in June. There's a lot. I'll share a few thoughts that highlight this. When she was a schoolgirl, she was a straight A student, always. Straight, I guess in the Soviet system, straight fives. And she always laughed about how her dad would make a joke that she stole all the fives. She didn't leave any for anybody else. And as she got older and she was done with school and university, she continued to be that exact same individual her whole life. If you could be graded on being a mother, on being a grandmother, on being a sister, co-worker, a friend, any of the above, it would all be fives her entire life. You think about strange things when something like this happens. And I thought about a story. It wasn't one of his better known ones, but he's a favorite author of mine, Stephen King. He wrote a story called My Secret Pony, or My Pretty Pony, I forget the title. It's not a horror story, it's outside of his typical genre, and it's a story about a grandfather who is talking to his grandson, and the grandfather is at the end of his life, and he's giving his grandson a pocket watch. And he tells his grandson that despite everything you know, time moves differently for us. It starts very, very slow when we're young, and it speeds up until as we get older and as we get past middle age, it seems like time goes in chunks, just disappears. I had the pleasure of having my mom with me through all of those times. There was the times that I thought would never end, that lasted forever. The times when I was little and almost a teenager, and then a teenager, where it seemed like these days would never end, where we would laugh and we would have, as Cantor Store said, our little rituals. My dad worked very long hours. It was often just me and my mom, of laying down on blankets on the living room floor, pizza, sausage, mushroom, pepperoni, thin crust, Italian Express, always the same. Movie after movie, and as the Cantor said, she never treated me like a child. These were movies that I would probably think twice, if not 10 times, before showing some of my kids. Danny, sure, but The Godfather at 11, Chuck Norris movies, Rambo, all of that, and we would talk about them and discuss them and watch them over and over again, and it seemed like that time would never end. And then time sped up, and she became different. She became not so much a mom as also one of the best friends I've ever had. And then it started coming off in chunks, and then it did. And then you think about the normal things. I wish we had a little bit more time together, but the time started to just disappear. She was working, I'm working, the kids started to develop their own lives as they well should. And lately, to be perfectly fair, we fought a lot. We had a fight, and it's been going on for the better part of a year. And it was a real fight. It was a fight where I yelled, she yelled. We would hang up the phone, then we would call and make up. And the cause of the fight was very, very simple and sort of stupid looking back on it. It was who calls who next. But it was, I understand it's fun. It was no laughing matter to any of us. To the parties involved, it was very serious. If I called her on Monday, I expected a call on Tuesday. If I didn't get a call on Tuesday, we would fight on Wednesday about why she didn't call. And then one of us would apologize and we would move on. I hope all of us here are blessed with having the same fight with our close ones, with our loved ones, because looking back on it now, that fight just comes from love. It's ridiculous, but when we talked, as we did just about every single day, we talked about everything. She was, as the Cantor said, she was a very intelligent woman. We talked about politics, we talked about the elections, we talked about what's going on in the world, we talked about our grandchildren, our children. We talked about their accomplishments, their achievements, what they wanted to do. We talked about movies. We talked about Lana and how my mom was concerned about her injuring herself and running always. I can continue for a long time. I'll leave you with a couple of anecdotes. Cantor stole my thunder a little bit on this, but yes, that's the mom that I have. Anything for anyone. Knows that I wanted to go to Vegas, books the trip, says grow a beard. Can't rent a car, so she rents the car, says go have fun. She hangs out and she drops a couple of quarters in a slot machine. Says you go have fun, you wanted this, you have fun. Another memory, my mom smoking on top of the roof of our townhouse in Niles in a bathrobe. Why? Because we had raccoons in the attic, and we had a cage outside, and the raccoons got caught. Who do I want to share this with? Not any of my friends. My dad was I think working in Alabama at the time. My mom, I told her that raccoons are caught. I convinced her to climb out the window, climb onto the roof to go look at them. She does, because again, anything for her son. She spends the next couple of hours sitting on the roof in her bathrobe because she's terrified of climbing back in. She's calling me every name under the sun, makes me climb back inside to get her cigarettes. Sits there, smokes until she works up the courage to climb back inside. She didn't speak to me for a few days after that, I think. But as with all memories, and the memories that came just very recently, we laughed about it a lot. We laughed about it just recently in the hospital when we remembered that story again. The last is a little bit of advice that she shared with me that I think always kind of stayed with me. She probably shared a lot more and I'll remember that, but this one stayed with me. She always told me, when you feel that there is no solution, no way forward, there are at least two. And I think those are very, very wise words to live by, so I wanted to share them with you. I want to thank everybody here for coming. Each one of you makes this a tiny bit easier for me, for Danny, for Joey, for Zach, for Lana. And Lana had a very special relationship with my mom. It was truly not the cliche mother-in-law, daughter-in-law relationship. Even with her passing imminent, and she knew, she still referred to Lana in Russian as my golden girl. She still gave her advice to stop running, finally, so that she doesn't injure herself. And I know that if we were to talk about the memories that her and my mom shared, good, bad, funny, sad, we'd be here far longer than her birthday as well, coming up in June. I'll conclude with this, because I like to argue about everything. I'm always right. There's a quote that I kept walking by at the hospital at Condell. I became too familiar with it over the last few weeks. The quote says, I might not quote it exactly, but it's pretty close. It says, instead of mourning the loss of the flame, remember how brightly it burned. It always rubbed me the wrong way. I disagree. I think we can do both. I think we should do both. I think we can mourn the loss of someone as special as my mom, who's meant so much to all of us here. can still remember how brightly she shined in all of our lives. Thank you.
The last quotation that you shared with us about mourning the loss of the flame, there's another statement of when you're in a moment such as this, saying, don't focus on that your mom has passed on, but rather what she has passed on. Babushka. In America, we think of a babushka, a kerchief, or women we wear it to keep their hair nice, or sometimes they're religious women and they wear a babushka over their head. But a babushka is a skill, and Ina perfected it. It was shared with me that she used to cook for her grandchildren when they were young. She loved each of her three. She obviously loved each of you and adored giving gifts to you, whether they were Visa gift cards or texting you to see if you needed her to DoorDash some food to your house just in case you were a little bit hungry. Danny, you were fortunate to get a call from her, I'm told, on your recent birthday. And Zach, she held on to life as long as she could, knowing that you were out of town and wanted to be here, certainly to honor her. And I know there was something between the two of you that you shared that was a very personal and perpetual gift. And Joey, being the youngest, we say, Acharon, Acharon Chaviv, the last is always the most sweet. And I'm sure you held that place in her life, and you were the bow on the gift box of grandchildren for her. Zach has some words to share.
My grandma was the most kind, caring, and smartest person that I knew. The happiest memories of my life were always on Saturdays. That was when my grandma would come over. We would spend the day talking, playing games, and watching movies with my brothers. She would sleep over, and we would spend even more time staying up late and talking. As I grew older, I learned to love talking to her. She would tell stories, make me laugh, and talk about important values to have in life. The one thing she talked the most about was how important it was to value friendship and to surround yourself with good people. I remember how I'd cry on Sundays when she would have to leave. I also remember when we would go out to dinner with her, and afterwards I would cry and beg her to stay and sleep over. Eventually she would give in, even though she had work the next day. A part of me wishes that when my grandma passed away on Saturday, I could have been there with her instead of in California, and I'd be able to beg her to stay. While I still wish I could have been there, I'm glad to know that she passed away peacefully. I loved all the moments I shared with my grandma, watching movies, talking. I love you, Bashka.
Ina had enough love to share with others, of course, her dear sister Mila and Emma, and her brother-in-law Michael, and Jane, and her nieces and nephews and co-workers, as you heard, so many of you. She also had a soft spot for a number of dogs that you had had in your lives, in her home and in yours, the German Shepherd, the mutt breeds, and also Charlie, your Weimaraner. We have to be frank when noting that Ina also loved her wardrobe and her fashion and her jewelry. She worked hard for it, she earned it, and she enjoyed spending it as well. She left you not only memories and gifts and recipes, but also some of her superstitions, such as wearing a safety pin to avert the evil eye, not whistling in your home. And being sure that if you were going on a trip, should you have forgotten something in the house and went back in the house to retrieve it, you first had to look at yourself in the mirror before, I got heads nodding here, I'd never heard that before leaving the house and locking up. In Yiddish, we refer to these superstitions as Bubamaisa, but in your case, maybe it was a babush Maisa. And you sit at your Seder table this year, and you sing Dayenu. I can only imagine the reflections you might have. If only Ina had been born to her loving parents, Dayenu, that would have been lovely, that would have been enough. If only she had had the opportunity to study at the Kiev National Economics University, Dayenu, that would have been a blessing. If she had only come to the US, that would have been maybe enough. If she only had had a loving husband and son, Dayenu, on and on and on. But 72 years is not Dayenu. It's not enough. She had so much more to live, so much goodness to share. May her memories bring warmth to your hearts. May you continue to emulate her values, and by doing so, keeping her alive for many more years to come. If you'll stand, I'll recite a prayer, and then we'll come to the close of our service before we go out to the cemetery grounds. במעלות קדושים וטהורים כזוהר הרקיע מזהירים את נשמת איתה בת דניאל שלחה לעולמה בגן עדן תמנוחתה ענה בעל הרחמים, אז תראה בשאת כנפיך לעולמים, וצרור בצורך יראה נשמתו, אדוני הוא נחלתה, ותנוע בשלומה משכבה. Dear God, the light of life is a finite flame. We must not be in despair. We are more than a memory that vanishes into the darkness. With our lives, we give life. With our light, we illumine the darkness. Thus, some part of us can never die as we move in the eternal cycle of darkness and death, of light and of life. May Ina's light burn pure and bright, as shall her memory for the years to come. We pray her soul is gathered amongst the holy and the pure in the heavens above. And we pray that the next time this family come together, only be a sweet and celebratory day in their life. Amen.
You can be seated.
We're going to proceed with the interment, the burial, in just a few moments. You can follow the hearse to the gravesite. At this time, I would ask everyone to please rise. And if anyone would wish to be a pallbearer, please do so. Grandsons certainly can be pallbearers as